So I cordially invite Dr. Dharmasena. It's over to you.
Good morning to all of you. And I must thank Mr. Sampath, who brought us very good environment, explaining with some kind of introductions. At the same time, I must thank Mr. Prasad Ranjan Artigala, who will arrange all this in a well-organized manner. And also, I should not forget Ms. Yasoda Pulgul, who really gave a very comprehensive presentation about these landmarks of this environmental conservation, but how get the interaction between environment and development. That is very important because everlasting conflict we have is development and environment. So I will start with that. To make my presentation, this is for, again, the Global Environmental Day 2024. The theme was land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. So we decided to talk about how we can empower land users on ecological restoration. I hope you can see my screen now. So I'm going to discuss about few things. One is just a brief introduction because we heard a very detailed introduction about this topic. Then some interpretation about the terminology we are using. Then we discuss about ecological degradation, especially in Sri Lanka, and how we can lace it with sustainable ecosystem management. And I want to show you some major agricultural ecosystems in Sri Lanka. But I suggest that when you say natural ecosystems to be transformed to agroecosystems, we have to get teachings of the natural ecosystems. To compare these two, and we will talk later about agroecosystems, and especially rice fields, field crops, home gardens, tea, rubber, and coconut agroecosystems. Why I wanted to tell about this? Because now we see most of these systems, land users, we refer this as production systems. When you say production systems, I don't know whether we are ignoring the environment. So that our main target is to transform these agricultural production systems to agroecosystems. And we have developed some concepts, mainly two concepts, and we will discuss about that. Finally, we will come to how we can empower our land users, especially farmers and others, for ecological restoration. I learned that 7 ways are there to restore land, hold desertification, and conservation. There are issues in this. So that to solve these issues, we have teams. One is make agriculture sustainable. So it includes the environmental management too. Then save the soil, including all these other part in the land. Protect the pollinators. Now we are losing our pollinator population. and restore freshwater ecosystems, renew coastal and marine areas, bring nature back to cities, generate financing for restoration. That is the global themes now to restore these lands as ecosystems. But we are trying to combine to our whole presentation to first to make agriculture sustainable and save the soil. Land degradation can be defined in many ways. But what we are losing is, especially when we say land degradation, it includes the loss of productivity, physical productivity, chemical productivity, and biological productivity, resulting in loss in biodiversity. And also, we are losing all these ecosystem services and functions. That is called land degradation. Land restoration. There are misunderstanding about land restoration. One term is rehabilitation, the other one is restoration. What we are going to do, whether we are going to restore or whether we are going to rehabilitate. Now, rehabilitation, return to a form and productivity in conformity with prior land use plan. So we are going to have a land use plan required for us at present. That means we are going to change something in rehabilitation exercises. But when you do restoration, that means we are going to return everything to original, normal, and unimpaired condition. Can you do it? Restoration is not a practical thing, but going along with this rehabilitation, it will become somewhat similar to restoration. That is the way that we have to think about this land restoration. Desertification. Desertification is something a bit extreme condition. When we say land degradation, it's a process and it will end up with desertification. Drought, that's another result, not only from this land degradation, but also from some other climate change impacts. So we have several, 5 types of drought, starting from meteorological drought, that refers to an extended period of dry weather patterns. As a result, we may get hydrological drought. That is the low water supply in rivers, lakes, and aquifers. Agricultural drought will follow it because of shortage of water. Then the agriculture will be affected. At the same time, ecological drought is something that not common for only agricultural fields, but as a whole. Finally, what will happen that all these drought types will affect our socio-economic status of our living human life. What are the drivers, threats, and consequences of land degradation? This is the process I has told. There are drivers, there are threats, and finally, there are consequences. So drivers are especially, one is the increase in population, and sometimes it confines to a particular area like urban expansion and the way that we eat, consume. We are trying to change our dietary requirements, then industrialization, unsustainable agricultural practices, still we are doing it, waste disposal, that's we call waste management, but waste disposal is to be done in a very proper manner. Then because of the agricultural activities and urbanization, there's a problem of deforestation. And finally, now we are facing bitter experience on climate change. So what will happen? One is loss of soil organic carbon and also biodiversity loss. Then salinization, solidification and salinization, nutrient imbalance, acidification, soil erosion, and pollution of air, soil, and water. Finally, it will come to some bad results. It will deteriorate ecosystems and landscapes, that is, we call ecological deterioration or degradation. Food insecurity, that is, instability of food supply. Then climate change and social inequality, poverty, then migration, and also it will lead to some kind of violence. Ecological degradation. There are factors. One is industrial wastewater pollution, then forest fires, then deforestation due to cultivation and urbanization and industrialization. Water pollution affects aquatic life, soil erosion, in some places wind erosion, then solid waste, how we can mismanage solid waste. Finally, it will end up with desertification. So that some of the effects of such degradation will increase spread of disease, drought, loss of biodiversity, and reduce agricultural production. What is sustainable land management? You know, in the history, we first understand the process of land degradation due to soil erosion. Then it will lead us to think about soil conservation. You know, our Soil Conservation Act we have established in 1951. And now we are thinking about not land management, but as a whole, ecosystem management. It includes, now, when we say land, it includes soil, water, flora, and fauna. And when we consider the process among these, then it will end up with ecosystem management. Now, when you say logically, land degradation is the depletion of its physical, chemical, and biological productivity. To maintain the long-term productivity of land, we have to think about sustainable land management. Sustainable land management means use of the land to meet human needs as we define sustainability while ensuring long-term production potential and maintain ecological functions to get prepared for the next generation. What is land? It includes soil, water, flora, and fauna. So it is ecosystem in more practical way. That means, land degradation is long-term depletion of the production potential and function of the ecosystem. In the past, we conserve lands, we conserved ecosystems, we used ecosystems in a very practical manner. They have understood, our ancestors understood the importance of ecosystems. Finally, sustainable land management is maintenance of the production potential and functions of the ecosystem. So what we are going to do is to conserve the resources, aiming to maintain potential, production potential, and the services and functions of ecosystems. We have a lot of ecosystems in Sri Lanka. There are natural ecosystems. At the same time, there are agricultural ecosystems. We call sometimes agroecosystems. Forest ecosystems are almost stable. If you don't disturb anything, it will be sustainable. And also it will teach us how to make agriculture productive. Forest and related ecosystems, inland wetland ecosystems, coastal and marine ecosystems. Finally, we will combine to agricultural ecosystems, getting all these lessons from natural ecosystems. Paddy lands, fruit cultivation, crop holdings, other field crops, vegetables, export for plantation like tea, rubber, coconut, home gardens, and rain-fed farming. All we have to consider as agroecosystems. In Sri Lanka, we have about 2.8 million hectares of agricultural lands, of which rice fields will occupy about 1 million hectares, plantation crops tea 0.2, rubber 0.2, coconut 0.2 million hectares. Field crops, more than that, it will take place in 0.31 million hectares. Home gardens, everywhere we can see different types and different functions, but still it will take place in 0.84 million hectares. So that we are trying to consider all these as agroecosystems. As human beings, we try to collect some experience from environment. We lived in the forest. Forest has a lot of teachings. So some of them we have to learn in detail. One is mixture of species. You know, in Chena lands, in shifting cultivation lands, we have grown a lot of species together as a mixture. Then canopy stratification, especially in the home garden, you can see that canopy stratification. With canopy stratification, there are different species and you will come up with different root depths which will compete nutrients, water, and canopy will take care of sunlight. So coexistence is the main theme behind that. Then because of these canopy stratification, we get a microclimate environment for all these species. Then if it is not disturbed and we are not doing anything about this ecosystems, it will do naturally soil fertility enhancement. To a certain extent, we can see that in home gardens, that natural soil fertility enhancement. Then when we have good soil, we can get improved soil microbial activities, which will be useful for converting the plant species, plant debris into available nutrients. Then resilience to natural disasters and enhanced carbon sequestration. Now this carbon sequestration is important when we talk about how to solve the problem of climate change, what we can do two things. One is carbon sequestration. The other one is reduce our greenhouse gas emission. Can we do all this in Sri Lanka? When we compare these natural ecosystems and agroecosystems, we have few factors there. One is using energy, solar energy. When we come to agroecosystems, we use solar energy. At the same time, we wanted to have energy from fossil fuels, especially for machinery and transport. Natural ecosystems, we found that its productivity is low compared to agroecosystems. What we are trying is to get the highest productivity from agroecosystems. Then species diversity is very high, very rich species diversity there. But when we come to agroecosystems, we try to produce something less species diversity. Then genetic diversity. We have high genetic diversity in natural ecosystems. We have less genetic diversity in agroecosystems. Then in natural ecosystems, nutrients are recycled. But here we have to supplement in agroecosystems. We know chemical fertilizer we are adding. And also pest population. Pest population is naturally controlled in natural ecosystems, but we will have to do something to control this pest populations. Sometimes we use pesticides and sometimes we use biopesticides. Then climax community, generally in natural ecosystems, it can be reached to climax vegetation. But in artificial community, sometimes we are, as farmers, trying to get something out of this, and it will not reach the natural climax vegetation. You may find some in home gardens sometime. You will come up with natural climax vegetation. Take one by one. This is rice field agroecosystems. Why we wanted to have agroecosystems instead of production systems? Because it will provide a lot of other services. One is regulating services. Soil erosion can be controlled. Drought impact will be minimized. Then we can control runoff if we provide good drainage system. Then driving can be controlled by using some wind breaks or some kind of other concepts we are going to discuss later. Then the flood can be regulated. This is regulating services. At the same time, provisioning services are there. We know that in any ecosystems, we have 4 factors to be considered. One is regulating services, then provisioning services, then supporting services, and cultural services. In provisioning services, what can be produced? Providing nutritional and healthy food by growing medicinal rice. That is what we have to consider. Among all the other foods provided by these ecosystems, rice field can be used to provide healthy foods, especially medicinal rice. And then providing live fences. Now we try to introduce something instead of live fence. Later I will talk about that. Then habitats for predators. That's also another important factor. Because of absence of predators, we have a very high population of pests and we'll have to apply pesticides. But in natural condition, even in agroecosystems, we can increase this pest predator ratio, so that predators will take care of pests. Supporting services is to support the system by itself. So support to human health, nutrients, medicine, moist and shady and pollution-free environment to the ecosystem. Then it will enhance soil microorganisms. Now, when we use some chemicals, these microorganisms will be destroyed. But in a real rice field agroecosystem, we'll have to protect microorganisms because it has a very effective role. Then support to assure a steady income from increased cropping intensity and crop diversification. That is what we are expecting. So that I should say that we have to think about a coexistence between development and environment. Cultural services. Sometimes we may forget that the most important part to make our minds free, to work as a team, and also we'll have to see how we can live together without much disturbance to our neighbors. And also we can make our minds free by looking at the aesthetic beauty of this environment. Then also we can use this system to learn a lot. So our people, our students, our university people, they can come and observe everything here, how the nature can support us and how we can love environment and protect it forever. Then also they have their own rituals, traditional rituals. For that, they need a lot of materials from these particular ecosystems. And finally, I want to tell you that these cultural services will bring us to get a teamwork. The binding factor of this social cohesion is the cultural part of the whole system. Then field crops agroecosystems, then we have a lot of issues. One is soil erosion, productivity decline, moisture stress, then pollution from agrochemicals, soil fertility depletion, physical, chemical, and biological, and pest damage. For that, we have to make some kind of recommendations to transform our production systems to agroecosystems. We have to do these soil and moisture conservation practices. And instead of doing monocropping, we have to go for multiple cropping. Then we have some other approaches like boundary green avenues. Instead of live fence, we can improve it. Then there's another concept called evergreen agroecosystem approach. Especially, we have our field crops and rice crops with some fallows. This fallow period will not contribute to carbon sequestration of the system. And also, if you set fire and put that paddy straw into soil, it will enhance then greenhouse gas emission. So that we have to use something very carefully about these agroecosystems. With these concepts, and we will have to use biopesticides and green manuring and composting instead of these pollutants. Home garden. Home gardens, we observed that in different places, in different agroecological zones, we have different types of home gardens, but how we can make sure that it is towards natural ecosystem. As we understand, there are things like crop mixtures, canopy stratification, root depth variation. We have discussed that, and creation of microclimate and soil fertility enhancement naturally, soil microbial activities will be improved. Then we'll have to find this resilience to natural disasters, and to address the problem of climate change, we have to enhance carbon sequestration. So these will have to include as strategies in home gardens, so that when we say intensification, this will take care of all these factors. And we have home gardens pre-matured, immatured, partially matured, and fully matured, fully developed, so that we'll have to take all these to full developed, intensified home gardens. And also we did, as Ms. Yasoda explained, that the 2050 carbon net zero balance strategies and roadmaps, we have developed home gardens, how we can intensify from 2020 to 2050. So that we found that wet zone home gardens, dry zone home gardens, and intermediate zone home gardens can be utilized to increase carbon stock in these areas, these lands, so that it will contribute so much to our climate change as a strategy. Once we analyze that, we will see that carbon stock can be increased by 267% by the year 2050 through home garden intensification. So that we have to do a lot, and how we can do it, that we have to discuss. Then tea agroecosystems. In tea agroecosystems also, we have listed a lot of recommendations. One is we'll have to fill vacancies. In some places, we have to do replanting, intercropping to increase the productivity and biodiversity. Then, as usual, we'll have to adapt all these physical conservation measures, manual weeding, and to keep the light penetration in a fair manner, we'll have to do shade management, and we'll have to establish live fence, green hedges, mulch that can be utilized by using even tea debris, grasses, and legumes. Then composting. We can use cover crops and green legumes for erosion control. Then water supply during dry periods in some places, especially in Ua province, we may experience some water shortage for tea agroecosystems. Anyway, we'll have to do crop diversification and intercropping to enrich our biodiversity in these agroecosystems. In case of rubber, as usual, we have to first start with structural conservation measures, then vegetative conservation measures, then agronomic practices like mulching, mixed cropping, and also we'll have to have some boundary green avenue, like species like Gracidia, Aramana, Cassia siamia, then Pavatta, Arthoda vesica, Katurumurunga, Sesperia grandiflora, then wild sunflower, then some vegetables like Halmas and Tambala, then a fruit like chow chow, and we can use it as a vegetable. So that we can transform that rubber-based agroecosystems from production systems. Then biofertilizer can be utilized by pesticides. Then intercropping, even with tea, we have seen in some places to improve the productivity, but at the same time, it will enrich the biodiversity. At the same time, intercropping can be utilized to increase the income of farmers. And natural pesticides and pest repellent species can be planted in some places wherever possible. There are pest repellent species we have found. One is Sera, Cymbopogon citratus, citronella, Symphoganadus, then turmeric, ginger, and arath, which are having very strong smell, which will repel pests. So that we don't want to have any kind of a rose, but have in ad hoc manner. In some places where possible, then it will create an environment which is not preferred by insects. Then coconut agroecosystems, we can adapt integrated nutrient management, then intercropping with pineapple, cocoa, and so on. Then green manuring and cover cropping, soil and water conservation, weed management, irrigation, fertigation, cropping, farming systems. I think to cut short my presentation, I'll have to give you, there are some other examples like intercrop with banana and turmeric. Then new concepts we have. One is, again, we'll have to follow the same concept in natural ecosystems, so that we have developed one evergreen agroecosystems concept, and the other one is boundary green avenue concept. Then evergreen agroecosystem concept, one is that we have to cultivate crops with different durations. And we have to ensure that the crop plants will not have any kind of fallow period, that is zero fallow period. Then farming models which will combine seasonal, semi-perennial, and perennial to see the greenery in all over the year. Then green manure plants such as Gracidia adatoda, as we discussed earlier, Erythrina, Thespecia can be grown as hedges with strict frequency of pruning. Without pruning, it will grow up and farmers will face the difficulty of controlling them. Shade management is adapted to minimize light competition. Then live fence is maintained with plants to create stratification. That is why we say that green avenues can be used instead of live fence. Evergreen agroecosystems, we have one introduced green hedge in the field crops cultivation and also in rice field cultivation. So it will combine 3 species which we have found through some experiments. One is we'll have to plant Gracidia on bunds across the slope. That will provide this nitrogen. Then in the same direction, on the same bund, we can plant Adatoda vesica. Then below the bund, we can plant citronella. Why we wanted to select these 3 as a combination of green hedge? That we have analyzed this one and found that nitrogen is rich in Gracidia, then Adatoda. Erythrina is not much suitable for these green hedges within the field. It can grow along these fences. Then citronella, that will provide some potassium especially. So nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium can be provided without any difficulty by having this kind of green hedge with the Gracidia, Adatoda, and citronella. Then the other one is boundary green avenue concept. The same thing that we have improved from food forest garden concept, so that we have different strategies to enrich the soil fertility, at the same time uses, then uses for as crops, timber, fuelwood, then vegetable, and so on, so that we will use maximum way of using our resources like sunlight, then soil moisture, and also nutrients. Then we will have some examples here. Large canopy, belly, and wood apple, neem, mango, coconut, like large canopy trees. Then medium canopy, we can use papaya, drumstick, and katrumurunga. Then creepers like for vegetables, anguna, wind bean, and passion fruit for fruits. Then guava, pomegranate, and soursop is with low canopy. Then ground layer and roots and tubers. Then ground cover. So it's a mixture of things. Stratification is there so that it will coexist and enhance the biodiversity of the system. So this boundary green avenue concept, it will create a good environment to come up with some kind of favorable supports, as we can see in a natural ecosystem. You know that pest control can be done by using this habitat for predators. Then microclimate can be created there, and also it acts as a windbreak, so that there are a lot of things like, in addition, aesthetic beauty can be seen without having monocrop cultivation with rice. You will see that there's a increased biodiversity, and soil fertility can be also enhanced. So that how we can empower these land users in this ecological restoration that has a very long history, but most important part is given here. One is the land ownership should be assured, and we'll have to make good training on ecological restoration, and also we'll have to put them into teams, groups. So landowner associations are there, maybe youth clubs, students clubs, then farm organizations. So much things can be done, and women's club, women's association. Then we'll have to get the support from government, at the same time private sector, non-government organizations, and we'll have to start with participatory land use planning. We know that now the land use policy planning division is initiating this, how we can do this land use planning in different places with different agroecological regions with different agroecosystems. Then we'll have to improve the landscape management and also participatory ecological restoration programs. I will give you one example we have done in Rambava DS division from 2013 to 2016 with the support of IUCN and financial support of HSBC, so that we have done a lot of planning there with DS, with other sector departments like Forest and Wildlife, and especially DAD, Department of Agrarian Development, and Department of Agriculture. So we have conducted a lot of knowledge sharing programs for students, farmers, and other people. Then we have come up with a land use plan, participatory land use map, which is acceptable to our divisional secretariat. Then it will be there as a Bible for them to go along with this development according to this map. So that it's a very good achievement. And also we have the implementation part. We encourage all farmers to come up with some kind of practical things. Like you can see that this particular woman is preparing this liquid fertilizer, then here composting, and they have done their job in a very precise manner. And also we encourage school children to participate in this common tree planting campaigns. Like that, we have done this implementation, but finally, when we do evaluation, which is a very impartial evaluation done by somebody else, so they have come up with some recommendations like they have to stress the importance of empowering farm organizations and communities for cascade management, then further training on financial management, soil health cards, knowledge on sustainable land management. Then awareness should be continuously conducted on cascade management, traditional knowledge, water quality improvement, because these areas are well known for kidney disease, so that we have to take care of this water quality also. Then after implementing, we have to continue monitoring, evaluation, and learning with the participation of farmers. And also, we can share this experience with other cascade land users, so that this will spread. The message will be taken by other land users also. That is what we expected from this particular pilot project in Rambayavadi division. So that we have the way of doing this without have any kind of damage to environment or any kind of damage to development. So that environment and development should go hand in hand without disturbing both. That is what we need in this particular day. We wish that we are having some students here, researchers are there, and also planners and implementers are there, so that they will have some kind of idea about how we can, this land users can be mobilized for ecological restoration. That is what we expect from this kind of webinar series. So thank you very much. And I think I have used the correct time, or I have exceeded the time that is given. I'm not sure because I don't have a good watch here. Anyway, thank you very much for the organization to arrange this kind of webinar and selecting me as a resource person. Thank you very much.